This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, located at 220 East 3rd Street. Building description, period style, and defining features. This structure is a 2-story masonry semi-detached building with a low sloping roof behind a parapet with projecting cornice. The building dates from the late 19th century, but has been significantly remodeled over time. In 2013, it became part of a larger renovation project involving the adjacent commercial structure. The entry-level facade has a new aluminum storefront with an entrance door to the right and shop window to the left. The remainder of the entry-level facade is sheathed in large format stone tiles. The upper-level facade has a stucco finish in light yellow color, along with 2 small double-hung 6/6 vinyl replacement windows. Scarring above the storefront in the stucco facade resulting from removal of previous signage is currently visible. The building has a modern appearance with no historical integrity. It is proposed to install a sign. The guideline citations I use for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior Standards number 9 concerning new additions and exterior alterations, the Bethlehem Ordinance that Gary wrote earlier in the meeting, as well as the Historic Conservation Commission guidelines for signage and awnings, specifically concerning care in installation of new signage. My evaluation, effect on the historic district, and recommendations. The Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to install signage for a new commercial tenant. The proposed sign includes a 1-inch thick box aluminum backer with a dark brown finish that measures 36 inches high by 144 inches wide. It is to be installed flush with the building facade. The sign reads in capital letters HOCAA, HOCA, in all uppercase, sans serif, bold letters measuring 12 inches high. The sign also includes a circular logo with black outlines measuring 20 inches in diameter. Beneath the logo are Chinese characters representing the corporate name and measuring 5 1/4 inches high. Beneath the lettering are 3 stylized graphics measuring 4 1/2 inches high each, followed by the slogan, Fresh Bubble Tea, in stylized sans serif, bold lettering, also measuring 4 1/2 inches high. At the lower left is the street number 220 in sans serif bold figures. A pinstripe detail in white color is offset around the sign perimeter and applied flush with the face of the backer, while remaining signage details are 3/4 inch thick vinyl cutouts in white color applied to the face of the backer. The sign is to be centered horizontally on the building facade, with a 6-inch gap between the bottom of the sign and the top of the horizontal trim detail above the storefront. The proposed signage is appropriate with the following clarifications. The property owner should repair the visible scars in the stucco facade resulting from removal of the previous signage, and the applicant should clarify the intended method for installing the new sign that hopefully avoids future scarring of the stucco facade when it's removed.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Xi, I see you in the audience. Would you like to tell us about your latest proposal?
Hi, thank you, Jeffrey. My name is Xi Chen, and this is the Hoka is my new business, and right now is planning to install this sign, and yeah, actually that's it.
It certainly looks much better. It's much more readable than last time. Do you think I guess one question I have is, do you intend to light it at all?
No, there's no light. No light. There's no light at all. We use the street light because there's a street light very close to my front door.
Okay, well, that's perfect. And that will certainly save you in cost too.
Yep.
In terms of Jeffrey's comment of the repair to the facade from the previous sign, I don't know if that's something you could communicate to us for the landlord. I don't know how to do that.
Hi, Gary. This is Kevin Luna. I am one of the owners of the property.
Okay,
And yes, we will take care of the repairs to the stucco.
okay, very good. Do any commission members have any comments?
I just have one. There's no diagonal sign, right? There in the package. There's like a one on an angle,
Mhm.
but that's just for graphic only, or
Well, that's a good question. I thought maybe something to imprint correctly. Is on the submittal we have on the document, there's a lower sign that's shown at an angle. Is it supposed to be that way?
Where's the angle?
I'll try my best to show it to you, but I suspect it's just the way it printed, but let me see. This is not easy to do. Can you see this at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Much better.
Yeah, but so the lower sign is kind of on an angle, but again, I don't think that was on purpose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does it seem like it just didn't print correctly?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
Can
Oh.
I ask, this is just one sign, right, on the front of the building, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
basically we're confirming that the sign's going to be mounted horizontally with no angles in it. It's going to be straight across.
Jeffrey, I see you waving your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, in my opinion, that is simply a detail to show what is three-dimensional versus what is flush on the facade, on the sign. So the pinstripe and a few of the details are flat. The rest of them are raised. And I had the impression from the sign maker that this was just a detail to show
Okay.
from a side angle what is three-dimensional and what is not.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's makes sense. Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to make a motion for the sign as presented for 220 East 3rd Street. It is approved as presented, that the building owner knows to repair any damage to the facade from the previous sign. And the applicant has indicated that lighting is not necessary because it's close to a street light. In addition to that, the sign will be installed in such a, in a standard manner of installing the sign so that it's secure. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
Beth.
All those in favor, well, we'll start. Beth?
Aye.
Okay, Seth Cornish?
Aye.
Roger Hudak?
Aye.
Mike Simonson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So it's unanimous. And the motion carries. Okay, Shi, thank you very much, and best wishes for the success of your new business.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we will move to our second agenda item, which I believe is 412 East 4th Street. Did I get that correct? Yes, that's right. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yes, that's correct.
Jeffrey, you may go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, I had a glitch there.
Oh, no problem.
412 East 4th Street. The building description, period, style, and defining features. This structure is a 3-story, 2-bay, semi-detached, mixed-use masonry building with a low sloping roof. It is sheathed with metal siding painted in a medium green color and includes 1/1 double-hung windows, upper-level windows, a full front pent roof across the storefront, or above the storefront, sorry. And the storefront has a large display window and a recessed door with transom. The building dates from the late 19th century, and based on the visible elements from or with the adjacent twin building, has simplified federal style influences beneath the current metal cladding. It is proposed to install a new hanging sign. The guideline citations I used for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior standards that I cited in the previous project, the Bethlehem ordinance that Gary cited at the beginning of tonight's meeting, as well as the Conservation Commission guidelines for signage and awnings that I referenced in the previous project. My evaluation, the effect on the district, and my recommendations. The Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to install a new blade sign for the existing commercial tenant. The proposed sign includes a 1-inch thick wooden oval backer that measures 24 inches high by 36 inches wide. The sign includes large cursive script lettering that reads EVAs or EVAs, depending on your pronunciation, followed on the next line by small, stylized, bold serif lettering that reads Bargain Boutique. It also features filigree scroll graphics above and below the lettering. The scroll details and the lettering are white in color, while the backer is black in color. The proposed lettering and details match the design of the window sticker signage that was determined as appropriate during the HCC meeting on February 27, 2017. The new blade sign proposed to be hung from a horizontal metal rod with a ball finial and attached at a single location to the front facade. It is centered horizontally between the left building corner and the left louver of the left second floor double hung window, and it is aligned with, the hanger at least, is aligned with the dividing rail of that window. I'm getting some feedback. If everyone could please mute if you're not speaking, please. The proposed signage is appropriate with the following clarifications and revisions. I would ask that they confirm the proposed design graphic is intended for both sides of the new blade sign. I request clarification about the method used to apply the letters and filigree to the sign backer. I am requesting to replace the proposed metal rod, which is not appropriate, with an appropriate metal scroll bracket in a black color. And I provided the city with a couple of images of appropriate brackets. If someone could please share that. So just across the street from this location is actually an appropriate bracket that could serve as inspiration. And then I think I included a detail also from the signage guidelines. So that's taken directly from guidelines for appropriate signage within the district. Thank you. And finally, I request the The tenant and or the sign maker cooperate with the property owner to properly install the bracket, which will require 2 connection points. So if you notice the detail of the photo montage in the right of the detail, they're showing that it's applied to the metal siding, which would not hang very long. And to be appropriate, a bracket is going to have 2 mounting location points. That means that a select portion of the metal siding would need to be removed. The bracket would need to be affixed to the facade, and then the siding would need to be replaced. It is a masonry building, so I'm also requesting that the mortar joints be used for the fasteners and not the face of the masonry itself during the installation.
Hey, thank you, Jeffrey. Is the applicant here?
Yes, I am.
Please
This
announce
is
your
Benny
name.
Dorneville.
I'm sorry, what did you
Yes,
say?
my name is Benny Dorneville. I'm the owner of Ava's Bargain
Benny.
Boutique.
Okay, thank you,
My
Benny.
first name is Benny.
Benny, could please go ahead and, can you answer the questions that Jeffrey asked about, starting with, what exactly is the graphic and how's it applied to the signboard?
The graphic is supposed to be on both sides of the sign. My understanding from our B signs is that I believe it's a painted sign, if I'm not mistaken. So that's my understanding of the way it's designed there. But it's similar to the signage that we have on the front of the window, and it's supposed to be applied on both sides of the sign.
Okay,
I
so
hope that answers the question.
okay, so in other words, it's just a flat graphic. It's painted on.
Right.
Okay. We might need a little bit more information on that, but what about the scroll that Jeffrey is recommending? Is that something you're okay with? In other words,
Yeah, that's absolutely no.
okay.
Yeah, we have no problem with that at all, actually.
Okay. Okay. And in addition to that, your sign installer will need to be aware of, we need some assurance as to how it's going to be fastened to the building. And it, very well could be that, they're entirely aware of that. We just, need to know about it.
Mm-hmm. You mean as far as the aluminum siding is concerned?
Yes. In other words, yeah, there's going to need to be a little bit of surgery done. And it's one of our standards too, that when there's masonry behind it, we ask that it's fastened into the brick joints.
I lost you. Hello?
Is there any comments from other commission members? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is Seth Cornish.
Go ahead, Seth.
I don't know how appropriate on this particular sign, but I don't see any pinstripe. Jeff, could you make a comment on that for me, please?
Yes, thank you, Seth. I considered that, but because of the prominence of the scroll detail, my opinion in that pretty much satisfies the need for some kind of a surround. I did myself do a sketch that included an offset, and it really competed with the scroll. And because HCC already considered the lettering and scroll detail was appropriate on the window almost 4 years ago, I felt like that takes precedent over the requirement for an offset pinstripe.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Sure, my pleasure, no problem.
Jeffrey, I have a question too. I'm assuming that a sign like this probably actually would be like a vinyl graphic on top of the signboard, and is that something that You know, if that's the case, would that meet our guidelines?
The guidelines don't dictate necessarily how the graphic is applied to a sign. It
Okay.
does suggest that a method be used that's considered for its longevity.
Right, right. So Benny, you know, that's maybe something for your own good. You should just get some clarity on, and, you know, just if you want the sign to last a while, you know, I know often we'll have something that's more raised lettering on top of the signboard.
Gary, I would
That's
like to, I would just like to ask if, don't we normally approve vinyl lettering on signboards for exterior signs? I mean, haven't we allowed that numerous times before?
You know, I lose track, Beth, I have to admit. And so, you know, it sounds like you're saying the answer is yes. So,
I believe it is. Jeffrey might know. Jeffrey, do you know?
Sorry, I know you, Beth, you told me offline, her camera's not working today. That's why she can't see me. Yeah, I was actually raising my hand. We have approved vinyl applied graphics to exterior signage because of its longevity. Unfortunately, the detail we were provided didn't include those specifics. I think that's why Gary's just requesting clarification to make sure that whatever is proposed, if appropriate, will go into the resolution.
right.
And I had one question for the applicant. The shape of the scroll work on the top and bottom, it delineates an oval that is flatter than the sign is drawn in your proposal. And I was just wondering if the whole sign could be made so that it's not as tall and that the outline of the sign would actually follow the shape of your scroll work. Do you know what I mean?
That's a very good point.
in other words, you want the shape of the sign to more closely follow the scroll work on the top and bottom.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it might make it more, it would make it feel like it's more purposeful somehow, that the shape of the sign would reflect the sign of the scroll work, the color, the shape of the scroll work. It wouldn't, I mean, I don't think it's not like I wouldn't approve it the way it is. I just think it might be a little bit more in keeping with your graphics if the shape of the sign reflected your logo and scroll work better.
Gotcha.
So that's just maybe a suggestion. It's not really a requirement.
Thank you. I will take it under advisement, though. You may look at that.
Gary, this is Seth Cornish. I'd like
Go
to
ahead,
make a
Seth.
motion that we approve the sign as presented with several changes. The first change is that the hanger be more historically appropriate than what is there, and the applicant can show the hanger that he has in mind to our historic officer, and the historic officer can make the appropriate call on if it's historically appropriate or not. The sign itself will have the scroll work either as it's presented, or if it's changed, again, the historic officer can approve its appropriateness.
Okay.
And the hanger will be attached to the masonry with screws into the mortar joints of the masonry.
Beth, would you be okay if we add to that any siding that is removed, it's, you know, the installation will such that it will be neat and that the siding will adjoin the bracket and in the appropriate way.
Thank you, Gary. That's good. Yes.
Do we have any seconds on that motion?
I'll second. Roger will second.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we'll call this to vote. Beth,
Aye.
Seth Cornish,
Aye.
Roger Hudak,
Aye.
Mike Simonson,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So the motion carries.
Thank you.
Benny, thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like a great sign.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I realize I was remiss in asking for public comment, but hopefully there wasn't much public comment for the first two submissions. So with that, I will go to agenda number 3, 125, 127 West 4th Street. Jeffrey, it's all yours.
Right, thank you, Gary. 125 to 127 West 4th Street. The building description, period, style, and defining features. This structure is a one-story brick masonry detached building with a flat roof behind a stepped parapet. The building dates from circa 1925 and was most likely associated with the emerging automobile industry at that time, either a car dealership or a mechanical shop, as evidenced by similar structures throughout Bethlehem. Don't see anybody sharing any of the graphics. If I had provided there's the image of the street facade, and then I had included some photos of some very similar structures throughout Bethlehem. Someone could please share those images. Are my detailed photos perhaps available?
Kelly, do you have those on hand? Yeah, Jeffrey, you were talking about the images that you had put together earlier, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. I sent them separate. I think they're really important for the discussion. That's why I'd really like to see them up there.
I might have a way, Kelly, to send it to you directly if you need me to.
I'll continue then, and maybe we can come back to them. So, I'm sorry, wasn't privy to the technology person's contact information. The structure originally had a central recessed entry flanked on either side by large glass storefronts. However, the facade has been significantly manipulated over time and has lost its original architectural character. Leaded glass or glass block transoms above the lost storefronts are covered over by a full front projecting pent roof that's sheathed with rough-hewn wooden shingles. The glass display windows in simple metal frames are located on either side of the entrance, which is currently flush with the exterior facade. The front facade received T111 vertical plywood sheathing, currently painted in medium blue color, below the pent roof, and vertical metal siding currently painted in bright white color above the pent roof during the late 20th century. It is proposed to renovate the front facade. The guideline citations I used for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior Standards number 1 concerning the use of the historic property.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Secretary of Interior Standards number 2 concerning the historic character of a property should be retained and preserved. Secretary of Interior Standard number 5 concerning distinctive materials, features, finishes, and techniques. Secretary Interior Standards number 6 concerning deteriorated historic features. Secretary Interior Standard number 7 concerning physical treatments of facades. The Secretary Interior Standard number 9 that I referenced in numbers 1 and 2 concerning exterior alterations, as well as the Bethlehem Ordinance that Gary cited at the beginning of tonight's meeting. So I will reference the front facade again during my assessment, and if the photos are ready, I will cue when I'm ready for those images of similar buildings. So my evaluation, the effects on the district and recommendations. The Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to reconfigure what is currently a 2-unit commercial structure into a 2 rear dwelling units and 2 front commercial units. The proposed rehabilitation of the front facade includes the removal of inappropriate plywood sheathing, the inappropriate projecting pent roof, and the inappropriate metal siding to reveal the original facade, which will also reestablish the original recessed entrance configuration. Demolition of inappropriate facade elements is appropriate. However, care should be taken by the contractor to appropriately address various concerns upon a reveal of the original facade. So still looking at this front image of the existing building, you can see at the upper left of the parapet, someone has done some initial investigations, pulling away a bit of the metal siding to reveal the original brick, but there's a lot of brick left to reveal. And my assumption is once all of that is to be removed, there's going to be quite a bit of things to take a look at, to assess, and to take care of. The proposal to install aluminum caps at the stepped parapet requires further investigation of the existing conditions before appropriateness can be determined. So they are proposing to install aluminum caps on the parapets. I would like to understand more about the condition of the parapets once all of the facade sheathing is removed before I'm prepared to state that aluminum is appropriate. The proposal to repair transoms when they're revealed once the pent roof and the sheathing is gone, as well as to install new transoms to replace the missing transoms by matching the existing is appropriate. So again, looking at this facade, just above what are now the store or shop windows, to about the level of the pent roof are a series of transoms. I can't tell because I couldn't get inside if they are leaded glass or if they're glass block. The proposal is to replace in kind and repair the existing, which those are both appropriate. The Certificate of Appropriateness application makes no mention of the entrance doors. They're currently located within the recess, but if the front facade is removed, they will then become the new front doors. So I am curious about the plans for currently the interior doors, what will happen when they become exterior doors. Clarification is also warranted about the notation. If you could scroll forward within the application set, there is one notation about the sign. It mentions something to the effect of the existing sign will be temporarily removed, but it doesn't state what's going to happen after that temporary term is over. There is a supplemental hand sketch that shows the front facade again, but has in red outline of 2 signs. Don't know if you can scroll through, and I'm sorry they weren't numbered, so I can't tell you what page number it is. Right there. So if you could hold there a moment, please. The supplemental hand sketch depicts 2 locations for new signage indicated in red with the notation, quote, to be submitted by tenant, which is above the revealed transoms, and each sign will be illuminated by 3 gooseneck fixtures. Signage within a parapet is appropriate. However, the full removal of the current siding might reveal historic locations for building signage. So I would prefer we withhold any kind of appropriateness concerning signage or lighting until the full facade has been revealed. And once we get the pictures I provided, you'll understand why I'm making that comment. Similarly, gooseneck fixtures have been determined by HCC as appropriate within the historic district. However, the location of the signage should be finalized first before HCC can assess and finalize the fixtures. I will note, however, that previous approval of goosenecks are always, or appropriateness of gooseneck fixtures depend upon the fact that there are no cables or conduits or junction boxes visible on the exterior facade. And I see from a detail that they are intended to be LED fixtures. So we limit the maximum Kelvin light temperature to 3000 Kelvin. The applicant assumes that the original brick walls will be revealed at the street level upon removal of the current plywood siding, as indicated on the drawing sheet A1.1 detail 3. So there is one large format architectural drawing. I don't know if you have a scan of that. But that states that the original brick wall will be revealed and repaired. If we can now switch to if they're available, the photographs I submitted of similar buildings throughout Bethlehem.
Were you able to get them, Kelly?
Perfect, yeah, thank you. So this is on West Broad Street, 431 West Broad Street. Very similar building of the same time period. You can see the stepped parapet, the sign field above, and the storefront windows. They've been updated. It's not in the historic district, so they're not necessarily appropriate, but it confirms that you would expect a storefront at the street level. The next image, please. So this is further west on Broad Street, 1134 West Broad Street. It's significantly larger than the current project, but a very similar concept. The stepped parapets at the top, the glass storefronts at the street level, and in the parapet, you see the indications or indentations where signage was intended. And the final image, please. And much more ornate, but much closer to the current project site, just a block away. 25 West 3rd Street. This was a Plymouth dealership. It's now part of the Banana Factory Gallery. Yet again, we see large storefront glass at the street level, and the stepped parapet above with recesses for signage in the parapet area. So thank you so much for sharing those. I think they're very important. When compared with similar nearby structures, the lower portions of the front facade originally included glass storefronts instead of solid brick walls. Indeed, an interior photograph provided by the applicant, so if we could scroll through the application, there's a photograph taken from the inside that also confirms my suspicion. If you could scroll through those, please. So the brick we're seeing here is a later brick infill, but continue scrolling, please. So you're gonna have to tilt your head. This image here, or if you can rotate 90 degrees, please. Here you see looking to the street, this is the interior of the exterior wall. You see the stud framing and the foil back insulation. At that point, originally was a glass storefront. It's been sheathed on the front. You can see it's really dark, but you can see the transoms above that are intended to be repaired and replaced. It's difficult for me to consider appropriate the suggestion to repair the original brick walls when, in my opinion, the original walls were actually not brick walls, but were glass storefronts. So for my suggestion is the applicant is encouraged to return to HCC upon removal of the various inappropriate facade elements, and then provide results of the findings concerning the condition of the exterior walls, as well as the intended measures to address any kind of issues before appropriateness can be determined. Finally, the application also includes a photograph of the rear facade taken from Rink Street. So if we could continue scrolling through the photographs, I think pretty close to the end. There's the rear elevation facade. It is visible from Rink Street, which is a public right-of-way, so that does fall under the auspices of HCC. There's a written notation stating, quote, awning at 2 locations, along with accompanying image. So there's also a product from OnTech Model Histonian fixed awning product. So I think if you want to scroll, maybe one there, that one. So it seems like they're intending some kind of awning on the rear facade, but beyond that, there was no information provided about the intentions to do anything to the rear facade. So it would be nice to have clarification before appropriateness of the proposed rear facade rehabilitation can also be determined.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Just a quick question. Is the rear facade something we should consider? Is it visible to the public? You're muted right now.
Thank you. Yeah, Rink Street is a street. I was there. People drive and park, etc. So the building sets back from Rink Street. There's a parking lot, but there are several buildings, that also back up to Rink Street. So unless I'm wrong, this is considered a public right-of-way, which is under the auspices of HCC.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And would you be Larissa?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It looks like a pretty exciting project and
Big one.
yeah. So anyway, I think the gist of what Jeffrey is trying to say is, maybe number one, I think you have some investigations to do. And I think he has a number of suggestions. Would you?
I mean, it looks a little confusing the way it's all presented. So under our investigations, just to start off, so the vestibule is hidden. The pictures as he was going through, those brick walls when you first walk in, those are the original walls that actually tend to go to the outside. So we did check out like what we kind of looked with the architect. I mean, obviously we can't see what's underneath them, but the vestibule turns in and those walls right there as she had up are like in perfect condition.
Oh.
So hopefully the outside is just as well as the vestibule is. Can you pull up the, that would be on, I should have numbered the pages and I apologize for that.
No problem. You actually did a great job in putting this together.
I'm sorry. Go back. That's inside. Right here. That right there, that would be actually the right there. So if you walk in, that would be 125's door. So that would actually be an exterior door. It would, be the actual front door for 125. Those walls are in perfect condition. Actually to the left, which would be the other door on the next page. Right there. That'd be 127. And I mean, it's very dark on, it wasn't on like that. I guess it was kind of dark. I apologize. But I didn't have any type of bricks that were broken. I mean, they're in perfect condition. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know it was an actual vestibule until the architect told me. The tile floor is original. That was covered under carpet, and we ripped it up and we saw all the tile floor. That's original. So I had somebody do some homework, and it was actually an old restaurant going all the way back to the 1920s.
Mhm.
So, you know, he told me we should just take the whole thing off since it's a big eyesore to 4th Street. So, you know, hopefully when we take off the front is what I'm asking, is to take it off and make everything old, you know, make it look like it used to look. I want to keep the same glass windows that are there. I don't want to make that bigger. The exact same windows that are there, I want to keep that as is. The windows that are up there now, those are all hidden. Some of them are broken. So the windows that are hidden behind the old windows that I have pictures of, the ones that are in the vestibule, those are actually in perfect condition, except for the one that is broken that has the actual wires running through them. I did have Starlight stainless glass come out. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's been around.
No.
Starlight stained glass. He redoes a lot of the stained glass.
So is it actually leaded glass?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So he's actually going to redo them for me. He actually had some of his guys come out and take the panels out for me, because you have to take them out from the inside. So he took them out, and he did that on 125 side already. And so I'm in the process of refinishing them. So I want to actually have that look back again. I don't really want to put it, you know, as a modern look. I want to bring it back as, you know, an old Bethlehem steel look, as the way it used to look, to be honest.
Sure. Larissa, just a question on this photo here, and I don't know how to tell commission members what to refer to. You're probably just seeing glare right now, but this is the existing vestibule here?
Yes.
Okay, because what I see is it looks like a variety of different kinds of brick.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
for
not
whatever
sure.
reason, they have, it's gray, and then you have like this strip of, like right in the middle where the building's like in half, you have this dark brown. See that?
Okay.
And then it goes gray again. So I don't know, when they built it, they used two different color bricks. I have no idea.
Yeah, to me, it looks like maybe it was done at a later time.
I don't.
You know, it's just kind of strange the way it looks patched in.
I don't know. I mean, I guess we won't know until we take off the front, to be honest. So,
yeah, that doesn't look like an original door either.
which door?
We're looking at the interior doors. So tell us more about the interior vestibule doors that I guess are going to become exterior and for your proposed work, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we can, I mean, obviously I'm gonna change the door handles, and I mean, it has that old looking mailbox flip. I mean, they're definitely older style doors. I might change the style of the door handle and make it look that old style that I'm looking for. The industrial is where I'm going at.
Well, keep in mind, you know, some of the things, while we'll guide you as best we can on items, you know, such as style of doors and so on, you know, what overrides is accessibility. So you're going to be driven to certain types of door hardware based on that. Although there's, you know, plenty available that, you know, you could go for a certain kind of finish. There's lots of different styles available too. But I think that's something your architect will certainly guide you on. I think let's focus more on the big picture items. So you know, I think number one, I hear you're saying that the existing storefront windows, you want to keep that. And I think you're also saying that, well, in listening to Jeffrey, I think what's going to happen is you're going to peel away the siding and there's going to be a lot of damage. You know, there's probably going to be nail holes all over the place. And so One question, of course, is, well, are you going to be able to repair it in such a way that you're happy with the results? And so I think there's just going to be a lot of questions that are going to come up as you start to peel away layers of material.
I mean, we won't know.
Gary, this is Beth. I wonder if we couldn't just recommend that she approve that, to allow her to go ahead and remove the siding and the pent roof. And once all that's off there and we can see what she's got, we would be in a better position to assess what's appropriate. But if she's going to keep the windows she has, it's sort of grandfathered in, even though it may appear as though it at one time had very large glass windows as storefronts. Since what's there is there, that's kind of a grandfather situation.
Right.
But we could advise much better about what she might do to the facade in terms of any damaged brick, or in terms of a huge or a lot of variety of different kinds of bricks that are kind of mishmashed together. It may be a situation where we never recommend that brick is painted, but it's possible that in this case, if it's very, very much a mishmash and it looks like it was only done in a utilitarian way that whoever did it thought it would never be seen. I mean, but we really can't know until we see exactly what's there. So I would suggest we just go that far.
How's that sound to you, Larissa?
Yeah, I mean, anything's better than what it is right now.
Yeah, that's right.
I
And
mean,
I'm sure
it's
you're anxious to start doing some
Yes,
investigating.
I mean, it's an eyesore.
Are there some other commission members who would like to comment on this?
Yeah, this is Seth. I kind of agree with Beth. We've seen this a lot of times. When you start tearing off stuff, things change. So I sort of agree with Beth.
Yeah, I do. I do as well. I mean, we're not going to know what's behind. We can't see through walls, so we're not going to know what's behind there until you open it up and really get in there, and then we can make a better decision.
Oh, I agree.
You said the front two spaces of the vestibule are going to be commercial spaces. Okay, so yeah, we will have to, at the time after we open it up and then find a layout, we'll have to make sure that it makes the commercial aspects, all the handicap accessibility and stuff, but that's further down the line. Right now, we're just dealing with this exterior.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we really can't guide you one way or the other until we know what's there. So
I mean, it is on a ramp, so that's
Yeah.
not that.
Right.
we'll get into those finer details as we get closer to the.
And in addition to that, I'd like to offer both Jeffrey, our historic officer, and myself, we can certainly meet with you if you have some questions along the way.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's starting to sound like, Beth, it sounded kind of like you were about to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for 125, 127 West 4th for the removal of the siding and the pent roof, the shed roof off the facade of the building. I think that restoring the clear story windows or repairing the transom windows that are leaded and existing is great, and it's a repair in kind. It's not something we need to rule on. I think we should wait on any light fixtures, including the metal cage lights fixtures and the gooseneck lamps, as we need to see what's behind that and what the condition of the brick is. I would also note that at this point, putting awnings on the back of on the Brink Street side of the building may not be appropriate, at least not that kind of awning. But we could talk about a canvas awning with open ends, and that's something that we normally approve for lots of buildings, and that would be something we could steer our applicant towards. Do we have a second then?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Roger. Okay, we'll now put this to vote. Though, okay. Beth Starbuck,
Aye.
Seth Cornish,
Aye.
I vote aye. Roger Hudak,
Aye.
Mike Simonson.
Aye.
Okay. So the motion carries, and Larissa, I think you're clear on direction then.
Okay, yes.
The one thing, again, I neglected, are there any comments from the public on this submission? If there's anyone from the public who'd like to make a statement on this particular project, please do so now. Okay, well, thank you. And Larissa, we're looking forward to seeing your project unfold.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Good
too.
luck.
Okay, with that, we will move to our fourth agenda item for 1418 West 3rd Street. And Sal and Jason, please come up front. Jeffrey, you may go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Gary. Is Mr. Posh also there just for minutes purposes?
Yes, he is.
He is.
Okay, thank you. So 14 through 18 West 3rd Street. This is a repeat from last month and earlier this year. Gary, I do have the historical descriptions of the existing buildings. Would you like me to repeat those, or for sake of time, skip over those?
I would say if there's any commission members who need the historic description, Jeffrey offered, for the sake of time, not to go into that part. I'm going to say, with the commission's permission, Jeffrey, I think it's okay to skip that part.
Okay, I gladly have them, and they will remain in the minutes. I just wanted to give people opportunity. All right, thank you. So the proposed alterations, it is proposed to demolish 2 buildings and construct a new 8-story mixed-use building on these 2 parcels and the abutting lots. The guideline citations I used for my assessment include the Secretary of Interior Standards number 9 that I've cited in the previous projects, the Bethlehem Ordinance that Gary read at the beginning of tonight's meeting, the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines concerning demolition, and the Historic Conservation design guidelines concerning new construction. My evaluation, the effect on the Historic Conservation District, and recommendations. During the HCC meeting on June 15 of 2020, the applicant requested a dialogue before finalizing intentions with the 2 historical structures and the adjacent empty lots along West 3rd Street. At that time, the applicant presented an initial proposal to demolish both structures and to develop the resulting site as well as the adjacent properties to complete the triangle of empty lots. The applicant's vision at that time was a single structure rising 5 to 7 stories with commercial tenants at the entry level and offices at the upper floor levels. The applicant returned to HCC on December the 14th, 2020 with a certificate of appropriateness application to retain the historical facades but demolish the other components of the existing buildings before incorporating the facades into the overall development project. The entry level of the remaining block included storefronts for commercial tenants and a second story brick masonry facade topped with a heavy cornice. The corner condition was anchored by a taller 2-story brick construction with a heavy cornice. The proposal also included 4 additional residential floor levels of glass curtain wall construction. The uppermost floor level was set back from the front facade to create a terrace. The overall building measured 88 feet high, not including the mechanical penthouse, by 244 feet wide. HCC responded with various concerns about the appropriateness of the design proposal, including the lack of reference to the existing historical structures to inform the remaining development, noting the differences in size and scale, rhythm and pattern, along with the architectural details of the existing historical facades compared with the more uniform design of the proposed streetscape. They also expressed concern about the overall scale of the development project. The applicant was encouraged to reduce the floor level heights to reflect residential use at the upper levels, rather than matching the taller floor heights of the adjacent non-contributing commercial building in an effort to reduce the overall height of the project proposal. And finally, HCC expressed concern about the inappropriateness of the glass curtain wall construction for the upper floor levels. The applicant returned to HCC again on March 15, 2021, with a certificate of appropriateness application to demolish both contributing existing buildings, citing undue economic hardship if required to retain, stabilize, rehabilitate, and incorporate those facades into the new design scheme. The proposed entry level included metal and glass storefronts with historically inspired detailing, while the remaining front or West 3rd Street facade included oversized, multi-light windows inspired by nearby industrial structures. The two uppermost floor levels set back from the front facade at the easternmost structural bays, and the upper floor level, which was delineated with massive half-round windows. The rear or greenway facade reflected a more residential scale at the upper floor levels with individual windows and cast details. The building height at the rear was mitigated by delineating two upper floor levels with a simplified facade system above an upper cornice at the 6th floor level that set back slightly. The corner condition included a glass curtain wall construction above the street level and extended beyond the upper cornice. While the heights of the individual floor levels were reduced to reflect the residential use as requested by HCC, the applicant increased the total number of floor levels from 6 to 8 floors so that the overall building height remained more than 80 feet tall. HCC responded with various concerns about the inappropriateness of the design proposal, including the following: a lack of variation with the proposed storefront design, especially a concern about the uniform lower cornice along the entire 240-foot wide building width, a lack of reference to the contributing historical structures now being proposed for demolition in order to inform the remaining project development, and finally, concern about the overall scale of the development project. The applicant was encouraged to reduce the building height, including a potential to step down incrementally from the height of the adjacent non-contributing commercial building to a more appropriate building height at the corner condition, and also setting back the building facade anything above the traditional building height at the 3rd or 4th floor level. And finally, they expressed concern about the inappropriateness of the glass curtain wall construction at the corner condition. So that was a summary of the last 3 times that we've seen this project. The current application represents the applicant's response to those HCC discussions. So I think perhaps now it makes sense to go to the large scale front elevation drawings. So it's one large architectural sheet, and we'll have to look at them in detail. Again, these are floor plans. There should be some facade drawings, flat facades.
That's the old one.
I'll continue reading my assessment. The accompanying, The accompanying cover letter bases its request for approval to demolish both contributing buildings because, quote, structural modifications and renovations to repair the structures would prove to be too difficult and prohibitively expensive, end quote. And continues, quote, any salvageable building materials or building elements of the existing buildings shall be donated to others looking to repair like historical building elements, end quote. The cover letter is accompanied by a site plan completed in April of 2020, engineering assessments and accompanying photos completed in 2016 by Lockridge Engineering, as well as supplemental assessment, engineering assessment, and photos completed in November 2020 by Barry Isett Associates. Architectural drawings completed in April of 2021, and that's what I was referencing just now, include scale drawings of the floor plans, exterior elevations, and computer-generated depictions of the proposed project from 3 vantage points. Assuming HCC approves the applicant's request to demolish the 2 contributing structures, including their historical facades, the current assessment and potential resulting motion supporting the appropriateness of the proposed development project should focus on 2 main concepts. The first is size and scale of the proposed 8-story development project to replace 2 2.5-story contributing structures and to complete the remaining triangular lots. And then the second category would be the proposed new construction with the storefront detailing at the street level, brick masonry construction with multi-light windows at the upper residential floor levels, and the metal panel sheathing at select facade locations. So thank you for finding the large drawing of facades. I think that's probably best for initial discussion. So the first category is size and scale. Again, this is all assuming that at the last meeting, even though there was no resolution, that HCC is allowing for full demolition of the 2 contributing structures. Should HCC support the proposed demolition, requests are predicated on the applicant's ability to replace lost contributing buildings with a design proposal that satisfies design guidelines for new construction within the historical conservation district. Relevant guidelines note, quote, new construction should reflect the dominant cornice and roof heights of adjacent buildings and proportions of building elements to one another and the streetscape, end quote. They also continue, quote, in South Bethlehem, where 2, 3, and 4-story buildings are the norm, buildings that digress from these standards by any great degree seriously impact the historic conservation district. If large-scale construction is considered, particular attention will be given to the effect of the proposed building on the streetscape and on the district as a whole, end quote. The current design proposal addresses the dominant cornice heights by incorporating detailing above the entry-level facade and again above the 6th floor level, with setbacks in the upper facade. So if we can focus, increase the scale and focus on the upper drawing, and this building is highlighted in a darker color than the adjacent building. So here we see the streetscape, storefronts, then we see up to the 6th, set off with a lower cornice, then we see a total of 6 floor levels with an upper cornice, and then we see 2 more floors setbacks, some of them more so than others with different facade detailing. During previous assessments, HCC requested the applicant to reduce the overall building height. Initially, it was 6 stories at 88 feet tall, and then 8 stories at 81 feet tall. Select members also admitted regrets with a previous HCC decision that the size and scale of the adjacent contemporary structure, which is 6 stories and rising 89 feet tall, they expressed regret after the project was completed with the original assessment that was appropriate at the time, but realizing upon project completion that was their own personal mistake. With that revelation, they encouraged the applicant to refrain from referencing that structure during ongoing design. At 244 feet wide, it should also be noted that the current development project is more than twice as wide as the adjacent non-contributing contemporary structure. While the current design might succeed at the street level, the broader issue is the impact of the proposed high-rise building on the overall historic conservation district. Based upon relevant design guidelines and commentary previously expressed by HCC, the applicant's current proposal for an 8-story structure with a height of 86 feet at its tallest and overall width of 244 feet is inappropriate for the immediate streetscape and more generally for the overall district. So the second category is new construction. The design guidelines encourage new construction to be compatible with the character of the existing streetscape and the overall historic conservation district. Guidelines continue by identifying elements and principles of existing historical buildings to consider during the design process for appropriate new construction. Those include such things as rhythm and pattern, windows and door openings, materials and textures, architectural details, shapes and massing, as well as streetscapes. The proposed entry level includes metal and glass storefronts with historically inspired detailing, such as masonry pilasters, glass transoms that mimic or recall the transoms of the buildings to be demolished, as well as awnings across the lower, along the lower cornice. Sorry, I need to back up. The masonry pilasters, the glass transoms that reference the ones to be lost, as well as awnings. In addition to a lower cornice that emphasizes the transition from the commercial street level to the residential floor levels above. So in the same drawing, you can see first floor storefronts, some details, and they're called out, it's hard to see, but referenced in the notations, influenced by details from the historic buildings. You have a cornice that separates that from the upper residential above. And those are all appropriate. They recall the design guidelines. The pilaster details animate the lower cornice along the front or West 3rd Street facade and help to mitigate the overall width of the building. So they did respond to the commentary previously that the front facade was just one long continuous facade. Now there's some delineation of that facade and in the cornice as well, which is appropriate. The remaining facade sheathed in brick includes oversized multi-light windows inspired by nearby industrial structures on the 2nd through the 5th floor levels, and they are separated between levels with decorative metal panels. So there's a detail called out, and you can see those dark shaded areas between the vertical columns of windows have a metal panel detail. I would request a bit of clarification about that as we move to the discussion. The 6th floor level facade includes oversized, what I think are plate glass windows with cast sills and lintels. Cast details are appropriate. However, I would mention that lintels should extend in each direction beyond the window openings. So the adjacent contemporary structure that exists is not appropriate. There, the lintels terminate at the window openings, which is a bit of a contradiction. And moving forward, we need to make sure if you do use cast lintels that they extend to the left and right of the window openings. The 7th and beyond that is a cast upper cornice, which is also appropriate. The 7th and 8th floor levels are set back from the front facade at the 3 easternmost structural bays. So the 3 bays adjacent to the existing building are set significantly back. That has nothing to do with appropriateness, in my opinion, just probably matching the setback of the existing building. While the rest above the cornice at the 7th and 8th floor levels are set back slightly. On the 7th floor, the windows match those on the 6th floor. And on the 8th floor, the windows are large half rounds with decorative panels separating the 7th and 8th floor windows. The uppermost windows also include half-round cast surrounds with keystone detailing. I think we mentioned previously they needed some more development, and this could be considered appropriate. Although I couldn't find such large-scale half-rounds in the district, based on the scale of the building, smaller half-rounds probably would look out of place. I'm not really sure about that. It should be noted that appropriate window light divisions within the district are never wider in dimension than in height. So with more detail, it's a little hard to tell, but a lot of these windows seem to be, the divisions seem to be wider than they are tall, and that is considered inappropriate. If we can now scroll down to the rear facade, that's just the lower drawing on the same drawing sheet. And that would be more to the left. Thank you. The rear or greenway facade reflects the residential, more residential scale at the upper floor level, so above the street level, with individual windows and cast details. Again, noting that lintels need to extend in each direction beyond the window openings. Should HCC determine 8 stories are appropriate, the rear facade seems to be more successful at mitigating the overall building height because it delineates the upper two floor levels with metal siding above the cast cornice at the 6th floor level and sets back slightly. A series of vertical bays also animate the rear facade at the upper floor levels by breaking the monotony of the overall width. And we do have examples of bays in the historic district, not necessarily this specific type, which has a point, is kind of triangular or pointed in the middle, but there is precedent for bays in the district. The current design of the corner condition, so that would be best if you could now scroll to the right. It's the drawing on the same level, just to the right here. So that would be the colored portion, the portion that has color to it versus the black and white on either side. The current design of the corner condition is sheathed in brick and emphasizes the importance of the corner location with large half-round windows and a door with cast details at the street level, along with a lower cornice. And you can also see those details in the other drawings, but here you see it face on at the corner. The 2nd through 5th floor levels include protruding bays of tall windows set in metal frames, while the 6th floor level includes 1/1 double hung windows, cast sills and lintels, along with the cast upper cornice. The 7th floor level includes similar 1/1 double hung windows with cast sills and lintels, while the building is taller at the corner of the 8th floor level. It's emphasized by a series of half-round windows with cast sills and surrounds. It's delineated with a brick facade that has corbel detailing, and the height of this portion has a cast cornice that rises 5 feet above the upper cornice of the remaining structure. So you can actually see that also better with the upper drawing. So if we could then scroll up to the front facade, there you see again from below to top, the window with the half round at the bottom, the lower cornice, a series of windows up the top, another cornice, final set of windows, yet another cornice, then the brick delineated facade, and to emphasize the corner, an even higher component of the corner capped by a cast cornice. In summary, the proposed details such as brick masonry facade, the detailed pilasters, the entry-level storefronts with glass transoms and awnings, cast sills and lintels for various types of windows, as well as the cast cornices, satisfy relevant design guidelines and are considered appropriate. However, clarification is requested before appropriateness can be determined for the proposed decorative metal panels that are proposed to separate the upper level windows, as well as the metal panel siding system that's proposed as sheeting for the upper floor levels, and also the protruding metal window bays at the corner condition. The applicant should also note that design guidelines do not allow tinted or reflective glass. So Gary, that was my assessment. So again, the two main categories, if I understood correctly at the last meeting, although it wasn't formulated in a motion, demolition is approved. Again, with demolition, we don't say appropriate, we say approved. Then we have two main categories, size and scale, and design of new construction.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. That was quite a bit. And Sal or Jason, would either of you like to? I mean, I think you know by now what our main concerns are on this, and you know, it's certainly a fantastic and exciting project. Would you like to help us along some more?
Sure.
Regarding Jeffrey's comments?
Be happy to. We need to introduce ourselves again, or we?
Please go ahead. You know.
I'm Jason Monroy with Spillman Farmer Architects.
And I'm Sal Verastra with Spillman Farmer Architects. I'll start off and just mention a few things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jason to go through some of the changes that occurred from our last meeting that we were asked to investigate, which we did quite a bit. We also, I don't know if Jeff mentioned it, I think maybe he did, but we were asked to submit a letter from Barry Isett and Associates, our structural engineer, regarding the demolition cost associated with those two existing buildings. I think you have that.
Right.
So that was submitted. So Jason will go through some of the, I'll say, architectural aesthetics that were addressed last time. And some of them I think were overlooked slightly, and we want to emphasize those. But obviously the elephant in the room is the size of the building, no pun intended.
Right.
So I want to say a couple things. First of all, let's not focus on the number of stories here. It's the height of the building. So regardless if it's 50 stories or 10 stories or 8, whatever, it's still the height of the building, which is, I believe Jeff said, is 80 feet, which is lower than the adjacent building, which we did focus in on that. I realize it's not as low as you'd like it to be. So three things I want to point out here that I think are really important that we struggled with, in the sense that we put a lot of time into this. For mostly economic reasons, I should say a good portion of this, we feel strongly that the height of the building has to remain as proposed here for economic reasons. And the applicant can attest to that if needed, but it's obvious that square footage is money. But in addition to that, architecturally, last time we talked about stepping the building down, because we discussed the building to our east, the blank sort of wall that would remain if we did go down to 2 or 3 stories, and stepping it from that height of 80 feet down to whatever 2 stories on the west side. I want to say that we found that not to be feasible for a couple of reasons. One, you have to realize, if you look at the floor plan, it tapers obviously to what we'll call the knuckle, or Jeff referred to the corner. As you taper it, you're losing dramatically, you're losing efficiency. And what do you do with a 2-story building that's a triangular shape? Because as you step back, it becomes even more exasperated, because you're 2 to 3 stories. So we're losing quite a bit of square footage on the building, and the look of it personally is historically inappropriate when we talk about that corner. The third thing is, this is the main point as far as a firm like ours with respect to the architecture. There's very few points in the city of Bethlehem that will allow this to be what we would consider a true flat iron style structure. There's not many places in the building that you can have, in the city, that this could occur. And we feel really strong that this opportunity only comes along a few times, and we should utilize it for the historic architecture aspect that's being offered here. We think it'll look very, very appropriate. And let me just say, a 2 or 3 story flat iron structure would be historically inappropriate, in my opinion, in our opinion. And that's what you would get if you stepped it back. If we started with the corner, and I like the flat iron corner, the knuckle, and reduced it down, it would be even more inappropriate. yes, I understand that the building to your east, which was at the height that it was, and we're working off of that a little bit. That is true, but this is also a gateway center in Bethlehem. When you come down either off the bridge, Hilltail Bridge, or coming down 3rd Street. And by the way, also you've also asked us to provide additional views, which we do have queued up here for you to show you, which Jason will bring into picture in a second. And those will clearly show what we're talking about as a gateway center as you come off the bridge appropriately. And you'll see that, what I like to call the flat iron or the knuckle on the building, which I think will be astonishing as you come into Bethlehem here. So that's my just introductory comments. I'm going to ask Jason to just go through some of the changes that we don't want you to think we totally ignored everything you said, because we absolutely did not. We took it to heart. And I want you to look at the building as a totality project, not just, if it was 2 and 3 stories, it would not look like this. We studied scale and proportions very, very carefully here. And we want to let you know we tried to address everything we could and keep it into context and take economics into account. So I'm going to ask Jason just to address a few things, and then we'll take your questions.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we took a look at was really trying to divide up the streetscape portion to help divide the size of the building, as well as update the streetscape facades in order to try to pull back some of the history that will be lost with those existing buildings. As Jeff alluded to, in the lower right-hand corner, we're looking at mimicking a lot of the elements that were once there in those 2 existing buildings, and breaking up that overall streetscape area. The upper 2 floors, the 7 and 8, they are stepped back, and really in order to try to break up the mass of the building, the upper right-hand corner is pushed back a little bit further, in some ways due to the adjacent building, but also to help just break up the overall feel of the building, especially since that is the wider end of the building. We were able to afford that opportunity to push things back. The mass of the building, the middle floors, as far as floors 2 through 5, really, I looked at this more so as a context of this is now one property in one building, and all the context of looking at larger scale buildings. I understand that this is a very long facade, but when looking at buildings of long facades here in Bethlehem or in other areas, there's a lot of uniformity and things that carry across. We did try to break up the scale a little bit with just the overall size and proportions of the windows, as well as just the size and locations of some of the column spacing, in order to help break up that rhythm a little bit instead of it being consistent in every aspect. The metal panels are really meant to be more of an architectural decorative element. Again, looking at some of the historic elements that are of Bethlehem, as well as other notable buildings of the time period, in which would help to articulate and bring some relief to the overall mass of this building.
Thank you, Jason. Here's a question, just looking at the 3rd Street facade. I think the setback really helps you. And one thing I'm wondering about, I mean, personally, I like the metal panel, and I think that helps too, the use of it. And I guess what I find myself wondering is, we suggested this to Mr. Benner's building too, is maybe the upper 2 stories on the brick portion should be set back a little bit more. And I know what your answer is going to be to that, but it looks, I think it would help, and it looks like it could be doable.
Yeah, Seth Cornish here for a minute. I really like the way the building looks up to the 6th story. What if we chop the last 2 stories off the top? I'm serious. It's too tall a building.
I'd like to agree with Seth. We are charged with the responsibility of taking into account any new construction that it will not destroy historic materials, features, or spatial relationships. And the height of new construction should fall within the ranges seen for the block or the district. Across Caddy Corner across the street at 4th and New, you have a 1-story terracotta. Lehigh Pizza across the street is 1 to 2 stories. The Banana Factory is 1 to 3 stories. The Comfort Suites is 4 stories. All of the buildings on Broadhead are 3 stories, and the buildings on West Graham are 2.5 stories. So I don't see any way that this is appropriate in terms of it's just a solid big block of building. If it were, and I'm not saying it has to be 2 or 3 stories. I know Sal keeps talking about 2 and 3 stories. Nobody's asking for that. But if the building stepped down significantly from the corner building to its east, and it continued at a lower level all along, if it had cornices that stepped down as well, although this is in a way improvement over the last facade, I still think there could be quite a bit done to visually divide the building vertically so it doesn't look like a great big long thing. Where else in Bethlehem could you put this in the North Side district? I don't think so. All the buildings over there are 3 stories except for the hotel, and I don't think it would even be considered. So I don't understand why we keep being asked to accept buildings that are out of proportion to our district, which we are charged with maintaining. If they don't want a historic district, I don't know, but this is not appropriate in scale, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Roger, who
Oh, okay, go ahead, Roger, then you could go, Mike.
I like it. I think it blends in with the new building, the building that was just built on the New Street level. We don't have the authority to dictate the height of a building. That's city council's job, not ours. So even though the thing is a big building, and we ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till next week. You know, there's going to be another one. We have to. I like this. I love the way they did it. It's a triangular shaped building, and I think they did a beautiful job. But we can't just say no because it's too high. I'm sorry that, and I followed along because I was very interested in keeping the storefront look, and they got them. They nailed it. I mean, I like everything about it, but that's just me. That's all I got.
Well, thank you, Roger. That helps. Go ahead, Mike.
I agree. Mike here. I agree with Roger. I really like this building. I think we've made quite a few changes in the last 2 revisions since this first came across our docket, I guess. And with the storefronts, it really kicks it off. I mean, we had some meetings previously with the Southside Task Force as well, and it included in that was some height restrictions and some height stuff in these general areas around there. And I believe the height was 90 feet in this area that the Southside Task Force worked on and came to kind of an agreement on, and went to public meeting and stuff. And this building does come under that 90 feet guideline that was set forth there. So, or that we're working on passing. And I think this building does fall within the guidelines that we're looking for in the South Side.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's an important thing for the commission to consider is that, you know, we are in the process of considering new guidelines for specific areas, and you know, this certainly falls within those height guidelines, even though as a whole, you know, I certainly understand the commission's you know, concerns, you know, that it's really becomes a different animal than, you know, the average building in our district. So, you know, there's good reason to be concerned. And, you know, I think in addition to that, I think one concern is that, between the length of this building and the length of your neighbor, everything this is all going to be north facing, and it's just, I think there's the concern that it could just be an overwhelming mass at the base of the historic district. And so that's my harsh criticism. My positive criticism is there's a lot of great detailing that I think is very appropriate. I think it's well done, the way you've differentiated the different kinds of brick pattern, the way you've done some you've done some nice things with brick texture. I'm hoping we'll find out more about exactly what you're planning to use. I like that you're differentiating materials and not just entirely trying to be something, there are some elements of contemporary design that I think fit well with the building, so that it's, it is expressing itself as something that both is, appropriate and fits within the context of the neighborhood, and it still says it's a new building. I would like to also emphasize Jeffrey's comments that, I hope you'll explore more the detailing of the lintels and perhaps some of these upper windows that seem to be proportioned a little more wider than when they should be proportioned a little more narrow. I hope that's something you could look at some more. I mean, all your efforts are really coming together, and I think they're appreciated. I think one more thing I'd like to know a little bit more about is the top of the knuckle. So, I looked at the floor plan. I see it's a community space. I guess, how high are you intending the ceiling to be in there? Because it looks like it's 2 floors, but I don't think it is, right?
Correct. It's not 2 floors. It would be a single floor space. It's really, again, to articulate that corner a little bit more, as well as acting somewhat as a screen wall for when you're coming down the hill-to-hill bridge. And if you could pull up.
Yeah, we wanted to show you 2 elevations that we were asked to show, and before I let Jason talk about this is one, and Beth and Seth, I wanted to address your comments as well as everybody else's, but I sincerely mean this, if this wasn't this lot, if this was around the corner going up the next street, I would agree with you on the height. It's this lot that's really important because it's at this corner like this, which will allow you to create a flat iron elevation. That's okay. This is a gateway. That cannot be a 2-story structure, 3-story, even a 4-story structure. I think it would look, even if it was stepped, I really do believe that it would look inappropriate if it was in that manner. And to Seth's point, if you just lop off the 2 top floors, which, as I mentioned earlier, economically it's not feasible, but we have to redesign it because it's proportionate. We have to redesign the cornice, bring it down, do whatever we need to do. The building will look totally different. It's really important, I think, to have this corner highlighted the way it is, this knuckle, as Jeff calls it, the corner, the flat iron, for that appearance. And we've studied a lot of them. I really do think that is, I know it's a difficult decision, and I sympathize with this, and I don't think it's going to do 2 things. I don't think it's going to be as ominous as you think, and the other thing is I don't think it's going to cause, which I know is in the back of everybody's minds, okay, the next person's coming in is going to want to put another 80-story building to the right or across the street and things like that. And that's possible that somebody's going to draw that conclusion, but I don't think it's going to change the dynamics of that street that we're looking down. I think this is a beacon right here. And there's another elevation that somebody asked us, the next one. I'll turn it over to Jason because he looked at these.
If we could just go back to the other picture for a second. Again, as Sal alluded to, I mean, the reason why that kind of point of the building is a little bit taller is because of the fact that it is more of a beacon when you're approaching along 3rd Street there. I kind of refer to it myself as more that the bell tower kind of element that sticks up a little bit above and proud of the building to kind of denote the location and prominence of what this is. If you can go to the next one.
This is the one that I don't remember who asked for this. This is looking from the other side.
Yeah, so this is actually looking from the Hill-to-Hill Bridge, standing there looking back towards the proposed site. And, you know, you can kind of see we're not, even though the building is tall, we're not looking to be any taller. It doesn't really feel out of context or out of proportion relative to the Comfort Suites, along with some of the other existing buildings that are towards the north there that were old industrial buildings.
I do think the setback with the metal panels on Third Street is helping you to break up that mass.
And Gary, to answer your question before, we absolutely will look at the extensions of the lintels that Jeff brought up. I think he's 100% correct. We can absolutely do that. And the metal soffit and siding panels are not an issue to have you. We can have those reviewed in detail if you'd like. They haven't really been selected down to the nth degree, so to speak. And we agree about the reflective glass for sure. And I think tinting, all tinting, right? It has to be 100% clear. Is that what the district wants? Am I understanding that?
Well,
Yes, yes,
this is
clear.
what Beth is saying, but I think you got to meet code still. So I know
That's where I was going with that.
Right. to me, the code requirements override. But I'm just the architect.
We wouldn't put it, I mean, we're not looking at a dark tint, that's for sure, but a very, very slight one. I agree that that's not appropriate here either, but we'll look at that very closely, and the window proportions, we can investigate that as well.
Yeah.
So none of those things are out of the question.
Well, if it's okay with the commission members, I think Darlene wanted to read a statement from the mayor, and then perhaps we should go to public comment.
Thank you, Gary. I just wanted to make sure that it's on the record, and I know that there are some, or I believe that there are some members of the public here, and they may not be aware of this. We did put it on the website today, but it was somewhat last minute. But you did receive in your packets or via email a letter from Mayor Donchez related to this project. It's brief. I'd like to just read it if that's all right. On Monday, April 19, you will again be considering the submission for the demolition of 14 to 18 West 3rd Street and the subsequent development of new infill construction at that site. This project has my support for several reasons. This project includes the redevelopment of a critical corridor on the south side, replacing a parking lot and deteriorated structures with a mixed-use building. It provides a new anchor in South Bethlehem's struggling Western Gateway area. The West 3rd Street corridor is challenged with the vacant lots, the high vehicular traffic, and wide intersections at Broadhead, and a lack of pedestrian activity along the corridor. This anchor building begins to connect the Western Gateway to the downtown and to provide important pedestrian interaction with the street. This project includes the addition of much needed residential units in the city. Quality rental units are in demand, and the influx of new residents can support the first floor commercial space, as well as other buildings on the South Side Arts District. The project is significant investment for Posh Properties and has continued to incorporate the feedback provided by the commission into this project. I appreciate the time and consideration the commission has shown this project, and I ask that you approve the project so it can move forward. And it's signed by Mayor Donchez. I think really, and when we look at pedestrian activity and the fact that that is a gateway where we're looking for additional attention, really was the storefronts on the streetscape to provide interaction with the street. And then I hadn't heard the word knuckle before tonight, but then also on that gateway piece really is the point or the piece of the building that you really see as you enter from the Western Gateway. And so I just wanted to provide those comments so that it's on the record. Thank you very much, Gary.
All right, thank you too, Darlene. I have to admit, in seeing the streetscapes and the aerial views, you know, the knuckle has gone quite a few permutations at this point, and you know, I'm still not sure it's quite there yet. I mean, because you know, it's a couple different things going on, and to me, you know, the views, you know, I think like the street view we have up right now, it somehow it ends up looking even more massive. So I'm wondering if maybe, you know, I think there's some things you could do for that, but I think before I go on too much, first of all, I just want to just express that as a thought or a concern. But at this point, I would like to go to public comment, and for everyone who would like to speak, again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and be specific about the building, and please announce your name and address when you get on. So will the first person who wants to speak go ahead? The floor is now open.
Gary, Dana Grubb, I'll go first.
Thank you, Dana.
Dana Grubb, 2420 Henderson Place. I've been sitting in on a lot of these Historic Conservation Commission Zoom sessions lately. And I'm beginning to wonder why we even have a Historic Conservation District on the south side. It seems every project or each project that comes in anymore, you know, has a reason for why they can't build to the scale, the mass, the appropriate scale and mass and height of a National Register Historic District. And I've said it before, I helped write the ordinance. There was a lot of thought that was put into it at that time. I happen to think that the design of the building is very attractive. I think the street views that they've given are much more helpful than the initial presentations. But it still boils down to height. And I thought the mere mention that height is being discussed in the context of this in another venue has absolutely no bearing on what you're discussing here. Those heights have not been approved. So I think it was disingenuous of anybody to mention that. I think what you have to do is look at what's before you, how it fits, whether it's appropriate in the Historic Conservation District. Seth mentioned taking the 2 stories off the top. I would respectfully disagree. I think what you want to do is you want to pull 2 stories out of the middle and reduce the height. That's the issue in the Historic Conservation Commission on, it seems like, every project that comes before you anymore. And this one, the mass, obviously, it's a much larger building. But I get back to my first statement. Why do we have a Historic Conservation District? If we're not, if this board is not going to protect, recommend, let the politicians play their game on the back end. But I think you as a citizen board have a responsibility to make solid recommendations, taking into consideration the ordinance and the Secretary of the Interior standards. And I think that anything beyond that, you're basically overstepping your boundaries. And if public officials, elected officials, don't want this to remain a National Register Historic District, then they ought to have the courage to say that and take the appropriate actions. And I'll leave it at that. I just think the building is still, it's too tall. I love the design. I can't argue with that. But it's overwhelming, and wouldn't want to be in the Historic Conservation Commission shoes, but I think you need to continue to drill down to the bottom line. Is it appropriate in this National Register Historic District? Thank you very much, Gary.
All right, thank you, Dana. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak tonight?
Hi, my name is Rachel. I live on the 900 block of 5th Street in South Bethlehem.
Rachel, could you give us your last name if you don't mind?
Leon, L-E-O-N.
Thank you.
I agree with what Mr. Grubb said. Like, I think that the building looks incredible, a lot better than the previous designs. And I can appreciate what the attraction for businesses and how it would upfoot pedestrian traffic. But the height is still going to be a concern to me. I worry about what such a massive building will do to further development in South Bethlehem. And I agree with the statements of the previous gentleman who said that the building looks even bigger now than it did before. So I just wanted to second those two statements. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Do we have any other members of the public who'd like to speak? Okay, with that, I think we really need to have a motion at this point for these applicants here tonight. And
Before we do that, I just would like to say, we do, Roger and Mike, absolutely have the right to limit the size of a building. Maybe Bethlehem wants to be able to allow taller development. And if they do, then perhaps they should just change the district. But as a district, we are charged to maintain its character. Part of that is maintaining the character of the size and scale of the buildings that are built there. It's just the biggest part of the whole thing is size, scale, massing. That's what you see. That's what you notice first when you look down a block, before you see the details, before you see the windows, before you see how cute the cornices are. And I have to agree, the building is much nicer now. I like all the details. I think that having a tall corner or point, as they would like to emphasize that's not even a problem for me. As far as it is right now, as it's just as existing, as tall as that is, it's just the rest of the building shouldn't be quite too tall. And I agree with Dana's suggestion of taking 2 stories out of the middle of it. That would make it much more appropriate if it could step down from the corner building, which everyone who's ever spoken about it agrees is too tall and too blocky and too big. We would be in better shape and a better scale to have it kind of blend down into the smaller parts of the district. I mean, 2.5 stories across the street, 3.5 stories across from that, 4 stories down to the other side. There's nothing this big anywhere that's appropriate. So I would again say, I mean, you're going to vote how you're going to vote, but I disagree flatly with the idea that we can't say what we think about a height of a building beyond the fact that our historic officer said the scale and the height is too tall. So if you don't want to listen to the expert, I guess that's what you can do, but I think that's wrong.
thank you, Beth. So if there isn't any other comments from our commission members, Beth, would you care to make a motion?
If you want a motion that denies it, sure, I'll make a motion.
That's a motion.
I make a motion that we deny this based on the fact that it is out of proportion with the district. It is out of proportion and it is mostly too tall, but I would say that the length of it is quite a lot to consider, and it could be divided up vertically so that it is more in keeping with the size and scale of the buildings that are natural to our district. So
Beth, as part of that motion, would you be willing to offer what you would find acceptable in terms of height?
well, I think that the storefront they've done, tell you, it's very, very difficult. I'm in Philadelphia and I don't have the drawings in front of me. So it's very, very difficult for me to look at the detail. It looks like the detail in the storefronts is much better. I believe that the lowered cornice is definitely positive. I think the setback with the darker metal really works to make it look less tall. I think you could break up the cornices so that perhaps over the first two storefronts on the east, the cornice was at the 1, 2, 3, 4, at the fifth level or the fifth level, maybe over to the setback of the black. So the first three storefronts, the cornice could drop down one. But I think really overall, just making the whole thing shorter would improve it. I think the detailing, although we don't see a lot of round windows like that at that scale in the district, I don't think that's a problem. It references historic architecture from that period. I think, and again, I'm sorry, but I just can't see the detail or read any of the writing that's on here because I don't have the drawings in front of me. Does that help, Gary? Is that what you want?
Well, that's probably enough of a motion and some feedback for our applicants. So I'm going to ask if anyone can second that motion right now.
I'll second that motion, Gary.
Okay. All right. So let's put this to a vote. Beth Starbuck,
Aye.
Seth Cornish,
Aye.
Gary Later here. I'm going to vote aye. Roger Hudak.
No.
Okay. Mike Simonson.
No.
Okay. So we have 3-2. I believe the motion carries. And I think usually when we have a vote that's this close like this, we ask that the two dissenters give the reasons why. Roger Hudak, can you give your reason why you vote no?
Yes, because I like the building. I like the plan. I think it looks great. It already has a monster next door. It just, to me, no. To me, I like it just the way it is. They did a beautiful job. I think it fits right in to the neighborhood down there. When you come down off the bridge, you don't notice the height. You're going to see the difference between that building and the one next door on at the New Street intersection. No. I just like it. I think they did a great job of doing what we hoped they would do. I like the way it looks from the Greenway, which to me is just as important as what it looks on the 3rd Street side. The height of the building is irrelevant. We have another thing coming up next week. We're going to go through this again.
That's right.
You know, no, that's why I just said I like it. Let's do it.
Okay. Mike, could you please give some explanation?
Sure. I like the building. I like the way it looks from the views they showed us from the Hill to Hill Bridge, and I think it fits in there. Yes, it is a large building, but I think it fits that area. That is a large area in the same time that they're trying to fill. And like Roger said, it looks good from the Greenway side as much as it does from the 3rd Street side. So I think the building does fit into that area. It is a big building but like I said, that's a big area. So I think it fills that space well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And just for clarity on my end, you know, we have to judge these things based on our guidelines, and you know, so even though we have in front of us a change in the guidelines, you know, it's yeah, I feel it's important to, number one, really respect our current guidelines, and I feel it's you know, also important to I think it's, I think it's just important to, I feel it's an important part of preserving the character of our historic district. And, so you can see it was a difficult conversation tonight.
No, there's no explanation needed on that. I guess my only question to you is, there's several members missing tonight.
That's right.
How does that impact, let's say they were all here and the vote would have been different. How do we look at that? We don't?
We can. It's, that's, I mean, one of the members who's not here tonight had to recuse himself anyway. I think, we're missing two other members, and I can't really surmise, how that would have impacted
Oh,
things.
of course not. I'm not asking you to do
exactly
that.
the same way.
Okay.
I guess the question really is, can you still make this project happen based on the feedback we've given you? I think what I'm hearing everyone is saying that, yeah, we think it's a great design. We love everything you're doing. I think no doubt everybody wants to see the project move forward. To me, a slam dunk would be to just come back here with 2 stories less. But I'm going to put out there, and I can't, I can't really say how much this will impact the commission's feeling either. But again, I think back to when we reviewed Mr. Benner's project, and we were willing to accept some setbacks. So now, on the one hand, you've done some of that, and it's really helped. So I'm just putting it out there.
Okay.
I just have a question for Sal. I mean, everybody that comes to us, before you had how many, it was a taller building, but it was how many stories of apartments? It was less, it was fewer number of, it was 6 stories, was it, before, of apartments, and now it's 8. I guess what I'm wondering is economically, which we do not consider, it's not up to us to figure that out.
Yep.
So everybody keeps saying, well, if it's 1 story shorter, if it's 2 stories shorter, I won't make any money. It's not worth doing. Well, how come there are other successful projects that have been made in the past couple of years where they're 4 stories and they seem to be doing well, like the 510 Flats and the building at Polk and Third? There are a number of examples of buildings that are shorter buildings that fit the size and scale of this district without pushing that limit. And they seem to be, I just know there's no vacancy at 510. I know that. So I don't understand this. Oh, it's got to be so tall. It's got to be so tall, when clearly people are figuring out how to do developments that are more in keeping with our district, and they're still making money. I think it's also not a matter of whether we like it or not. It's whether it's appropriate for the district. Whether I like it or not, and I do like a lot of the details, the scale is inappropriate for the district. And I would say, I agree with Gary. You came back with 2 stories shorter, or however many feet shorter you want to go. Even if you left the knuckle as tall as it is, I'm sure it would be I'm almost positive it would be a slam dunk at that point. And I personally, I don't know, but who knows what the other people on the board would have said tonight, but who knows? Anyway, never mind about that. So good luck. I hope you can make something that's somewhat of a compromise for us, because it would be great for you to build that building. Everybody's excited about it. I think it would be a great thing to happen. It's just a little too overwhelming.
Okay, well, unless anyone has some other concluding comments to make, I think we're, it's probably time to move on. Again, we thank you for all your
time.
efforts, and please keep at it.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Get your sticker.
Okay, so with that, Jeff, did you have something that you were going to present tonight, or is that for our next meeting?
Thank you, Gary. I wasn't sure. I can walk everyone through a new business item, or we can include that under new business on Monday, whatever people prefer.
How complicated is it?
It's a window scenario for New Bethany Ministries. It's actually, I wouldn't even call it new business. It's just a discussion item. I do think I saw the graphic. If the technology person could put that up on the screen, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. So we were approached recently by New Bethany Ministries. This set of three, a bank of 3 windows is adjacent to their entrance to their food pantry. They're in their soup kitchen. That's the door to the left. Because of COVID restrictions, oftentimes they've not been allowed to allow their patrons to go inside. So these windows have been serving as a pass-through for their hot meals for their patrons. The windows quickly broke, it's the way they described it, because they probably had not been used in years, especially not for this purpose of constantly opening and closing. So if you take a look at these 3 windows, the one on the far right, difficult to see, but they're insulated panes. It's completely shattered. It probably slammed shut as they were trying to use it, and is now not usable. The far left window is in kind of a delicate location. There's a desk and stuff in front of it. They can't really reach that window, so they typically use the center window. And because of difficulties with that window, it also looks like someone had to cut it probably with a case knife to even make it functional. It only rises about 2 or 3 to 5 inches, so they can barely squeeze things once that middle window sash is open. So the request is to replace this bank of windows so that they are functional and they can better support their patrons with their food pantry and food delivery. I've cooperated with their proposed contractor. They're proposing Pella replacements. If you could scroll to the next image. They're not replacing the trim, they're simply replacing the sash in kind. Here you see the sketch from Pella proposing the replacements. They raise, they fit within the openings, existing openings, so all we're doing is changing out the sash themselves. And I think you have one more, is the brochure. It's from the historical line called Traditional. It has true divides. They'll still be 1/1. It has improved hardware, limited in the finishes. So I think we're going to have them paintable once installed. We do have had problems with some Pellas in the past because they are considered replacements. These are clad on the exterior and wood on the inside, or the option of having clad on the inside as well. So again, I'm not requesting a motion at this point, or at this time. It is simply informing HCC about New Bethany Ministries' intentions of replacing, looks like probably from the 1960s or 70s, the insulated sash that have failed. Not exactly in kind, because these are actually improvements, so they can better service their patrons during COVID restrictions. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you. So I'm sorry, Jeff. You know, I guess my mind is still kind of considering our last, you know, the last application. But I think this was really intended just to let us know what's going on with that project, with that address.
It's one of those things that we're going to be able to let staff make a decision on, or has that not been cleared yet?
That hasn't been cleared yet.
Because I think this would be a kind of perfect example of something that could work for the staff to make a decision on, as long as we're very clear about what kind of replacement windows are acceptable and how, you know, they have to really fill the space in the same way and have the same kind of glass, pretty close to the glass size that the originals had. But yeah, no, it seems like they should do that.
We'd be willing to. We just don't have the permission to.
Yeah, I think that's something that they're, you know, I know they were talking about not windows, but they were talking about roofs and certain signs. I remember when Philip was here still, he had the sign thing kind of down, the pinstripe, the size, the shape. And I know that that was one thing he was going to consider or thought that they could consider to do in-house. But I don't know who's working on that. So I guess that's just something to find out.
Great, thank you, Beth. So let's have a vote to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Gary, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting as written. As usual, Jeffrey has done a magnificent job.
That's right.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight? Otherwise, it looks like we'll reconvene next Monday.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And, you know, important meeting, important discussions.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for your
whatever I did.
Yeah, whatever you did, that was
whatever it is I do up here.
You're good at kind of straddling, I think, and that's helpful. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome, I think. So so I'll plan to straddle a little more next Monday, and we'll see everyone then. So have a good night. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks everybody. Good night.
Bye.